What is going on, people? So I was lucky enough to be online when this little target was pointed out in the main chat. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and check it out, see if I can finally get me a solo after so long. And the first thing I like to do is check their heroes because it's very important. And I see that they're very, very ranged heavy. Now, he's got about 2.6 if we're rounding up, but the good news is that they barely have any T4. So when I see that they barely have any T4s, whether it's 2 million, 3 million troops, I feel like that's definitely soloable. No rally needed for that. So the first thing that I want to go ahead and do is go ahead and check the phalanx. If you do not know how to check somebody's phalanx, I do have a video dedicated on that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that in the description. That way you can check it out if you don't know how to do it already. But that's what my first march is going to be. So of course, that is just to take down the wall and see exactly what kind of front line they have. So we're going to go ahead and scout once again. And first thing I like to see is that wall HP is now at 0, which is perfect. And then I see the wounded count. So funny enough, I see 3 different troop types there. So I'll go back to the first scout and I see that there is Ancient Drake Riders wounded already. So I didn't necessarily wounded the Ancient Drake Riders. It was already there. So that's something to keep in mind. So now that I see that there are grunts and archers. So there's 2, meaning when that happens, when you see that you wound 2 different troop types, it means that they are in a wedge. Now, because the infantry number was higher, I figured that that means that they are in an infantry wedge. Now, of course, before I go ahead and attack, I gotta heal up my siege because obviously I sent that first attack, and you're going to get some dead when you're phalanx checking. It's pretty much just the cost of being able to check the phalanx, but it is absolutely worth it in the end because now I know that I'm gonna go with cavalry first. Now I go with war talents, which is basically like my hybrid to have all 3 attack type because I know that I'm gonna need more than just cavalry. So I just go with the mix. And now I'm just making sure that I pick the right phalanx for that, which I also have a video on if you don't already know how to pick the right phalanx. And I'm ready to go. So I have my presets all ready, and all I gotta do now is just add more T4 and we're good to go. Now I do have my familiar, at least my cavalry familiar, maxed out, the attacking one, the one that stacks. So I'm gonna be showing that in just a bit and see how exactly that works. But first hit, we get the fire. That is always great to see when it's the first hit. And there you go. That was about what, like 900,000 or so. So that was pretty good. And as you can tell, he pretty much mainly lost T1s and T2s, which isn't amazing. But what I want you guys to take a look at is because they were in a wedge, I only attacked or wounded half of their heroic fighters and their royal guards. So that means that I should actually go ahead and attack with cavalry again, because if I go ranged, I'm going to run into infantry. And if I go infantry, well, I'm going to run into infantry and cav. So that's not very good. So in those situations, when you still have a fairly a good amount of infantry, etc., you can just go cavalry, and then once you clear the infantry, it'll still be cavalry on cavalry, so it's not going to be as bad as like sending infantry or ranged. But regardless, that's what I was looking at there, because like I always say, when you're attacking a phalanx, it's always better to attack or easier to attack that front line. But in a wedge, you got to think about it a little bit, because you're going to only be attacking half of the front line and then another troop type depending on which wedge it is. So it always takes a little bit more time to kind of scan the situation. But there it is, the second attack, full calves, and we pretty much wiped out the infantry on that one, and we actually wiped out all of the Ancient Drake Riders as well. So like I said, I feel like if I would have gone ranged there, the result might have been pretty much around the same. It would have been a little better once I got rid of the infantry, but you know, I don't think it's gonna be that much better. And then of course, to clean it all up, we're just gonna go with infantry. Nothing fancy here, just make sure that I change over to my infantry gear, obviously, and then the phalanx, cavalry phalanx, because that keeps the infantry in the back. And there it is. So a million 2.6 million troops pretty much wiped out in 3 hits. But what I really want to see is my familiars finally in action, because let's be honest, when you see those familiars stacking 100% after 100% after 100%, makes you feel a little good. So there it is. I was actually able to finish it all off in this one hit, probably because they didn't have any sort of siege. Because you know, whenever you attack somebody with siege, they'll always have like that little amount of siege at the end, which is so annoying. But yeah, a little recap of all of the battle reports. But let's see this puppy in action. Now remember, this is my cavalry hit, so we're going to be focusing on the cavalry one. Also, keep in mind that I do have infantry and range up front, which is why these other familiars are going to be proccing. You know, range attack increased by 200%, etc. But remember, it's only 4 troops, so it doesn't really matter. And then my infantry attack, that's the one that I'm still working on. I have all the orbs necessary. It's just I need to get him up to speed. Well, there we go. So yeah, they got up to 4 because every time 1 troop was wiped out, that equals to 10% of everything. So that's why you can see both of them proc 4 times. But here is the one that we're talking about, the booby prize. Cavalry attack increases by 200%. And you know, now that we're actually talking about this, right? I was actually thinking about the stacking and how it works. Cavalry attack increases by 100% every time 10% of your troops fall. And I actually got to thinking, and I'm like, are the stats really that crazy to where once you lose 90% of your troops, the cavalry attack is still going up by 900%? That's insane stats. And the more I got to thinking about it, I feel like what they're trying to do, or maybe this is already known and I'm just realizing this like way too late. But I feel like what they were really trying to do with these familiars is when they're proccing and you're getting 400%, 500%, etc. Essentially, all they're really trying to do is to keep your damage output the same throughout the battle. Because of course, if you go into a battle with 700% cavalry attack but 50% of your cavalry troops are gone, you're not doing the same amount of damage. But if you're going into a battle with 700% cavalry attack and 50% of your troops are gone, but then in turn you have 500% more cavalry attack, that's pretty much like you still have your whole 100% march doing damage. So I feel like what they're really trying to do is just make sure that your damage doesn't fall off as the battle goes on, which is, I feel like that's pretty ingenious, especially because that means people are going to lose more troops. It means people are going to need to build more troops, and essentially that's going to mean that IGG is going to be making more moolah. But yeah, I think that's exactly what they were going for, and I don't know if it has that same effect to where your damage output stays the same. But I have a feeling that that's how it's working. So yeah, as you can tell, every time I lose 10% of my troops, I'm getting that nice 100% bonus. And then now with my infantry hit, this one unfortunately, like I said earlier, is the one that the familiar isn't completely done yet. I need a bit more experience. I feel like in about 4 or 5 days it should be done. I should have it at 100%. So we should be great on that front. One thing I will say though is that now watching these battles back, it does get a little annoying to where the battle is pausing like every couple of seconds because a familiar is proccing. I mean, granted, it's helping me, so it's not like I hate it type of thing, but I just like the delay every single time. I just wish that it would proc once and then maybe have an option to where, you know, once it procs once, you just see the number below. You don't necessarily have to see it, the animation every single time. But hey, that's just wishful thinking. But yeah, on this one, I don't know if it even got to proc once, because I don't know if I even lost 10% of my troops. So yeah, it became it wasn't even used. So yeah, but yeah, 2.6 million troops finished in 3 hits easily, and these familiars definitely helped with the damage output. Quick shout out at 7 Eastern today. I am going to be on Lords Mobile's Facebook page giving away some codes, so come through. yeah, appreciate you guys for watching, and until later, bye.